Part 1. The End of an Era. Jade. After 17 years, your position is being terminated. Clear your station by end of day. That was the message, delivered flat and cold through a holographic call from my supervisor, Damien Cole. My name is Jade Morgan, 54 years old, and until that morning, I was the lead cyber systems analyst at NovaSynth Corporation, the pulsating heart of New Avalon, the sprawling megacity of 2154. For nearly 2 decades, I'd been the backbone of NovaSynth's cyber infrastructure. From the era of wired mainframes to the dawn of neural cloud networks, CEOs came and went like fleeting shadows. But I stayed, mentoring fresh recruits, retrieving lost data, working weekends and data cycles without ever asking for recognition or reward. When Damien summoned me to his sleek office and Cassandra from HR was already seated, I felt the shift in the air that had been creeping for weeks. No more subtle hints, no soft warnings. Just blunt finality. "I understand," I said, nodding once. No anger, no begging. Just acceptance. Back at my terminal, I caught the glances of younger engineers, many of them trained under my watch, quickly diverted to their glowing interface panels. They didn't understand the labyrinth I had woven into the system, the archaic yet vital algorithms buried 3 layers deep within our networks. I methodically packed my personal digital archives, a hollow photo of my daughter Lila, a coffee mug she crafted in her synth art class years ago, and a synthetic bonsai plant that somehow thrived under artificial lights for nearly 2 decades. Kara, the communications director, appeared at my doorframe, concern etched across her features. "Jade, this is outrageous. You practically built this place." I shrugged. "Companies evolve, sometimes without warning." Her voice rose, drawing nearby attention. "This isn't right." "It's fine," I said quietly. Really, it wasn't, but I wasn't going to start a scene. As I logged off and began my exit, Damien stepped into the corridor, watching silently. No handshake, no farewell. Just surveillance to ensure I left. What they never saw was that I was the most critical node in this entire network. Not because I was brilliant, but because I was meticulous. Years ago, during a security breach, I had instituted encrypted audit protocols at the legal team's request. Copies of those logs were hidden even in my personal drives. I paused, looking back at the glass spire where I'd spent most of my professional life. My access badge, now deactivated, had been renewed 16 times. I initiated my hovercar and left. They had no idea Wednesday would be interesting. Part 2. Watching from the Shadows. I had joined NovaSynth when it was just a modest 2-floor operation in the industrial sector. My daughter Lila was just starting kindergarten. Now she was finishing her graduate studies in biosynth integration. The company grew, and so did I. I turned down several lucrative offers from rival firms because loyalty still mattered to me, even in a world where loyalty was a rare commodity. My wife Lyra often joked that the servers were my second family. She wasn't wrong. I knew every glitch, every shadow workaround, every backdoor no executive dared to ask about. The infrastructure I built had survived 3 corporate takeovers and countless tech revolutions, embraced enthusiastically by management, only to be discarded a few cycles later. Damien became my boss 5 years ago. A young, ambitious MBA graduate who referred to us as IT assets rather than people. His meetings were filled with buzzwords: streamlining, digital transformation, doing more with less. At first, I tried to educate him on the complexity beneath the surface, the fragile web of legacy code and new frameworks. "We need to future-proof," he'd say, eyes fixed past me, as if I were invisible. 6 months ago, a consultant named Jax Nolan was brought in. Sharp suit, icy handshake, and a resume glowing with credentials from the New Avalon Institute of Technology. They huddled in secret meetings, whispering as I walked past, guarding the gate to the system I had sworn to protect. 3 months ago, I noticed my access permissions subtly shifting. Small changes to administrative controls, nothing glaring. I could have fought back, but I chose to observe. To document. Part 3. The First Clues. "You've seemed distracted lately," Lyra said one evening, as we watched the neon city lights flicker beyond our balcony. "Just changes," I replied, sipping my synthetic ale. "Nothing new?" But these changes felt different. I was pushed aside in meetings. Emails about system upgrades stopped landing in my inbox. Projects I once led were reassigned to younger engineers. Then came the company-wide memo I wasn't supposed to see, a full restructuring of the cyber division under Jax's leadership. My role didn't exist anymore. That same day, during a background security sweep, a task forgotten by most, I caught something. Unusual financial transactions streaming through our software. Payments to a shell company I'd never heard of. Apex Dynamics. Apex was newly registered with an address pointing to a courier hub in the industrial zone. Payments started small but grew steadily. I kept silent. Just took notes, copied logs, and watched. Sometimes the quiet node in the network sees everything because everyone assumes it's offline. Part 4. Aftermath and Revelation. The morning after I was forced out, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my personal console. No alarms to wake me, no calls to answer, only silence, and the crushing weight of betrayal. Lyra brought me nutrient tea, wordlessly placing it beside me. After 19 years, she knew when I needed space. "I'm heading to the market. Need anything?" she asked gently. I shook my head. After she left, I opened a hidden drawer in my desk, extracting a secure flash drive, one of several backups I kept locked away. Company policy forbade data removal, but years ago, when the legal team demanded audit trails for insider threats, I had insisted on off-site encrypted backups. They approved, then promptly forgot. I plugged it in and scanned through internal communications, meeting notes, financial ledgers, records no ordinary employee should ever see. And there it was. A detailed ledger of payments to Apex Dynamics, nearly $1.8 million over 18 months. The approval chain pointed directly to our CFO, Brian Vale. I dug deeper, matching dates and amounts until the pattern emerged. Payments aligned perfectly with software license renewals across the company, but the sums were inflated by 15, sometimes 20%. Small enough to escape immediate notice, large enough to siphon off millions. The owner of Apex was Brian's brother-in-law. They had been siphoning corporate funds through fabricated markups on legitimate expenses. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a cold calm wash over me. Not anger. Something sharper. For 17 years I fixed problems, secured data, held the line. And they discarded me like obsolete hardware. Part 5. The first moves. My console buzzed. A message from Steven, a junior analyst I'd mentored for 2 years. "Sorry about yesterday, total bullshit. They're already moving into your office. What now?" I didn't reply. Everything was in place. Damien and Brian needed me out of the way before anyone connected the dots. They thought the evidence would vanish with me, that I was just an old tech relic clueless about modern finance. I opened my email and drafted a message to the board. But paused. Too direct. Too easy to dismiss. I needed leverage, precision, a way to expose the fraud that couldn't be ignored or buried. I deleted the draft and started planning. Wednesday, the day of the quarterly board meeting. Financial reports presented, bonuses approved. Perfect timing. I closed my console and stared out at the city where I'd built my life. For the first time since yesterday, I smiled. Part 6. The storm unfolds. Wednesday morning, I parked my hovercar across the street from NovaSynth's glass spire. In the passenger seat sat my laptop, logged into an anonymous email account I'd created years ago for system penetration tests. At exactly 9:15 a.m., I hit send. An email to Damien. Subject: Financial irregularities. Urgent review needed. I included just enough detail to be credible but kept family ties out. If Damien was involved, he'd panic. If not, he'd investigate. Either way, I'd learn something. By 9:45, my phone rang. Damien's number. I let it go to voicemail. His message was terse. "Jade, we need to discuss your email immediately. Call me back." I didn't. Instead, I drove to a nearby cafe, set up my laptop, and waited. At 10:30, an email arrived from Cassandra in HR. "Ms. Morgan, we have received communications from you that may violate your separation agreement. Cease contact with NovaSynth employees immediately. Further contact may result in legal action." So this was their game. Threaten, isolate, dismiss. I hadn't signed any such agreement. At noon, I accessed my secure vault at the city's credit facility. Inside lay an older backup with critical security logs I hadn't uploaded yet. Among them were original protocols I had designed, detailing who had access to what and when changes occurred. Records showed Brian had requested elevated permissions on financial approval systems exactly 18 months ago, when Apex payments began. Back home, I found 3 missed calls: Damien, Cassandra, and now Jax Nolan. Jax's quick involvement intrigued me. I checked my personal messages. Urgent text from Steven. "They say you sent a crazy email about financial fraud. Jax called an emergency meeting. Everyone's talking. They're revoking your access to everything, even archives. We need to do our jobs. What's happening?" Poor kid. Caught in the crossfire. I replied briefly, "Don't get involved. Just watch." Part 7. The Confrontation. At 3 p.m. my home comm console rang, a number I hadn't used for business in years. I answered silently. "Jade, this is Brian Vale," his voice steady, controlled. "We should talk about your concerns. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Is that what you call it?" I asked coldly. "Transitions are hard. If you have questions, there are proper channels. Like the board." I cut in. "The board doesn't need operational details. Let's meet tomorrow, just you and me, and clear this up." "Sorry, I'm busy. Besides, I think the board would be very interested in Apex Dynamics and your brother-in-law." His sharp intake of breath said it all. "You're making a serious mistake. We can fix this. Severance, references, whatever you need." "Goodbye, Brian." I hung up. Within 10 minutes, Cassandra emailed again. My severance had doubled, attached to a confidentiality clause. They scrambled, still thinking I was a simple extortionist. They had no idea what was coming. Part 8. Unraveling the Web. Thursday morning brought clarity. I had spent the night combing through years of data, connecting dots I'd missed. Apex was not Brian's first scam. 3 years ago, shortly after he became CFO, payments flowed to Lakeside Consulting. Different name, same game. Invoices inflated for partially or never delivered services. Lakeside was registered under Patricia Vale, Brian's wife. She was CEO of a shell company with no website, no staff, only a virtual address. Even worse, Damien wasn't just aware. He facilitated the scheme. In exchange, his department's budget ballooned while others were cut. Jax Nolan was implicated too. His consulting firm had been hired through unusual channels, bypassing procurement. His real job? Eliminate the one person who might uncover their scheme. Me. The scam was elegant. Create legitimate-looking vendors. Approve inflated payments. Split the difference. Real services provided, just overpriced. Auditors scanning only for fake charges missed the pattern. Nearly $4.3 million siphoned over 3 years. I compiled everything into a comprehensive dossier. Spreadsheets tracing the money flow. Business registrations linking companies to Brian's family. Emails showing Damien's knowledge and participation. Part 9. Allies and the Final Play. I did something unexpected. Contacted Robert Chen, a semi-retired board member I'd worked with years ago on security systems. "Jade Morgan," he said after the second ring. "Long time. Heard you left NovaSynth." "Not by choice," I replied. "Robert, I need 15 minutes. It's important." Silence then. "Brian and Damien have been tense. Board meeting was heated yesterday." "Where can we meet?" An hour later, we sat in a quiet park 3 miles from headquarters. I handed him a sealed envelope and a flash drive. "That's everything. Dates, amounts, connections. I'm not asking for my job back, or money. I just want the right people to know." He studied me. "Why me?" "Because you actually read audit reports. I've watched you ask the right questions." He nodded slowly. "There's an emergency board session tomorrow. Finance committee review. Convenient timing. If this checks out, serious consequences. I'm counting on it." As I walked back to my car, my comm buzzed. Jason Nolan came by the apartment looking for me. Said it was urgent. I told him I was out. They were desperate. Good. That afternoon, job offers flooded in from 2 rivals. Better pay, higher roles, big signing bonuses. I ignored them. This wasn't about a new job. It was about finishing what I started. Using credentials that should have been revoked, but weren't. Sloppy IT transition, Jason. I logged into the company's email servers one last time. Scheduled a message to all board members at 8 a.m., just before budget approval. Read this. Attached. My full report. Part 10. Justice served. Friday dawned clear and bright. I sat on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city wake. No alarms, no commute, just waiting. At 8 a.m. sharp, my email landed in every board member's inbox. By 8:17, phones began to ring. Unknown numbers, assistants scrambling to reach me. I let them go to voicemail. At 9 a.m., the Emergency Finance Committee meeting began. Robert Chen was there, dossier in hand. He watched reactions as my email was read and discussed. At 9:32, Stephen messaged. "Police are here. Brian and Damien are being questioned. Jax looks sick. What did you do?" No reply. The wheels were turning, just as I planned. At 10 a.m., NovaSynth's legal counsel called. Unlike others, I answered. "Ms. Morgan, this is Patricia Graves from legal. We need you here to discuss information you've provided." "I'm available by phone," I said. This requires in-person. No, I interrupted calmly. All I know is in that report. Multiple secure backups exist. If anything happens to me or my family, copies go to SEC, IRS, and media. Silence. Ms. Morgan, she finally said, measured, the board is taking this seriously. Several executives are on administrative leave pending investigation. Your cooperation is appreciated. I have done my part. After she hung up, I drove to a diner 20 miles out of the city. No point in being easy to find. News broke on local feeds. NovaSynth executives under investigation for financial misconduct. No names yet. At 2 p.m., Robert called. It's a bloodbath. Brian confessed when confronted with your evidence, trying to cut a deal, blaming Damien. Damien denies everything. Jack says he was just a consultant. Board doesn't buy it. All three suspended pending further investigation. Money? Forensics estimate at least $4.5 million diverted in 3 years, maybe more. I nodded. I was close. Board wants to talk to you about returning. Not just to your old position. They're creating a new role, Chief Security Officer, reporting directly to the board. I expected this, but was still surprised. I'll think about it, I said. Part 12. Full Circle. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office overlooking New Avalon's skyline. Brian pleaded guilty, cooperating for a reduced sentence. Damien fought charges, claiming ignorance. Jax fled the city but was being extradited. Most of the money was recovered. My former team reported to me. I had promoted Steven to manage day-to-day operations. The kid had potential. He just needed someone to see it. A knock at my door. Lyra stood, smiling. Ready for lunch? I nodded, grabbing my jacket. Passing through the cyber division, conversations briefly hushed. Not from fear, but respect. They knew what happened. They knew I could have destroyed the company instead of saving it. In the elevator, Lyra squeezed my hand. Happy? I thought. The anger that drove me after being fired had faded. What remained wasn't exactly happiness. More like satisfaction. Completion. I'm good, I said. Outside, the October sun warmed our faces. As we walked to a nearby cafe, my phone buzzed. A message from Robert. Board approved your security budget increase. Unanimous vote. I smiled faintly. No arguments, no questions, just trust. Lyra noticed my expression. What is it? Nothing, I said, slipping the phone back in my pocket. Just thinking about bridges. Some collapse under their own weight. Others, once repaired, become stronger than ever. I built this one right.